Is that caught on camera? Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of our Wildlife Ambassador series. And today we are actually coming to you from inside the Wildlife Center rather than outside, because the ambassador I want to introduce you to today actually enjoys spending a lot of her time inside here with us. So without further ado, right here is Clover. Clover is an American kestrel, which is the smallest falcon we have here in Virginia. And like most of our other education animals, she was originally a wild bird. She came to the Wildlife Center a couple years ago when she was very young. She had been taken from her nest by falconers. And it's kind of a long story, but the short version of it is she was taken at such a young age that she actually imprinted on people. And what that means is because she was cared for by people at such a young age, she thinks she belongs with people. She wouldn't really know how to survive on her own, like catching her own food. So fast forward, after she was taken from those falconers, or by those falconers, sorry, she was cared for a period of months, and eventually they released her back into the wild. But as a young bird that was imprinted on people, without those survival skills that she would need, she quickly lost weight, and she struggled out there. So she was eventually found at a local gas station where she was flying up to people and essentially begging for food. So she ended up coming into our center, where we very quickly realized that this was not a bird that had normal bird behaviors. When we would go in the enclosure with her, she was flying up to us rather than away from us, which was our first clue that she was probably imprinted. And so we started working with her, and she transitioned really well into the role of an education animal. So now she has actually been coming with us to programs at libraries and schools and other events where she's able to share her story, because I think a lot of people know about the physical injuries that wildlife receive in our hospital, and maybe that being a reason why they can't go back out in the wild. But sometimes people don't think about the behavioral side of things. So she's able to help teach about that too, which is always fun for people to learn that. And then, of course, she's just a really cool animal for people to get to meet. Most people probably have not seen a kestrel out in the wild. They're seldom seen, but they're definitely around here in Virginia as well as many other states. And there's some things that make them unique. They're one of the few raptors that the males and females actually come in slightly different colors, like a cardinal would, for example. So if you get a good look at one, you can probably identify whether it's a male or female. Clover here has the female coloration, which if I put her up just a little bit here, you can see that nice pattern she has on her back there. And despite being the smallest raptor we have in the state, kestrels are amazing predators. So in the wild, what they'll often do is they're very graceful flyers, and they'll sort of hover in place by flying at the wind with a certain direction and speed with which the wind is pushing back at them. They're able to essentially hover in place and look for the different things that they might want to go after, because a lot of what they'll eat, they'll catch right out of the air. Things like different flying insects make up a large portion of their diet. They might even catch some other songbirds that are a little smaller or even close to their size, as well as, any small mammals that might scurry about, they'll also take advantage of that and swing down and catch them. So they're really good predators. Something else about their natural history is they're also cavity nesting birds. So just like a woodpecker will, live in a cavity in a tree, so will kestrels. They don't peck their own holes into trees. They'll take advantage of any natural cavities that are already there, like maybe an unused woodpecker hole in a tree or something like that, and they'll make their homes and nests there. Now Clover here is housed by herself at the center. These birds are solitary in the wild, so they're not really spending time with each other unless it's, the breeding season. But during the breeding season at the Wildlife Center, even though she's housed alone, she'll still lay some eggs. They'll just be unfertilized. And this past year, she actually had 2 clutches of eggs. So that was a total of 10 eggs. So it was really fun to watch her sit on those eggs and incubate them for a while until she was kind of, tired of that process. Oops. You might be curious what we feed Clover here at the Wildlife Center. Oh, that was a nice rouse there. She just shook out her feathers. That's always good to see. That's kind of like when they're, shaking things off, stretching a little bit. But at the Wildlife Center, we feed her little pieces of mice that we'll kind of cut up for training, or if we're not going to do a training session, she might just get a whole mouse. Sometimes some chick, or to add variety, mealworms or crickets as well. We try to, give her a mix of things to see what she's interested in and what she likes. They have very high metabolism, so she eats every single day. We feed her twice a day, usually once early in the morning and then once towards the end of the day as well. And during her time here, she's become very comfortable around people. As an imprinted bird, that's not entirely surprising, oftentimes because they think they belong with people. They want to spend more time around people. So what we do with Clover is we often bring her here into the center during the day, and there's a perch just behind me to the left here that she will sometimes tether her to, and we'll just keep her there for a while we're working. She likes to watch, what's going on in the Wildlife Center, who's walking by, and it's nice enrichment for her to come in like that. She also seems to enjoy going off site for programs when I'm going to schools and different classrooms with her. She's definitely one of the birds we have that's most comfortable going to those sorts of programs, so she's become a very good ambassador for her species. And the last thing I will say is what we can learn from her story is if you ever do find a wild animal, it's certainly never a good idea to try to take care of that animal. They're very difficult to care for. And if you're not careful, it can end up being an animal that doesn't know how to survive on their own because they rely on people. So if you ever find a wild animal that needs help, always make sure to call a wildlife rehabilitator who can give you advice. And if it does need help, then it can go to either them or another rehabilitator for care. But thank you so much for tuning in to another one of our Wildlife Ambassador. Oh, really, Clover? Really? Thank you so much for tuning in to another one of our Wildlife Ambassador series. I hope you enjoyed meeting Clover. And if you enjoyed this video as much as we enjoyed being filmed for this video, then make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks, everybody.